At closing time, the Jerash hippodrome is quiet enough to hear wind moving through stone. Once, this place was built to roar. Under the track, beneath dust and collapsed chambers, researchers found teeth, not treasure, not offerings. Teeth that had kept a pathogen hidden. A racetrack is supposed to hold speed, hooves, wheels, men shouting wagers into hot air. This one also held a silence. No crowd could spend. Researchers identified Yersinia pestis DNA in a mass grave at Jerash, Jordan, beneath the city's former Roman hippodrome, near its ancient center. Jerash was not a mythic ruin then. It was streets, markets, animals, kitchens, voices carrying through courtyards before the carts began coming. The genetic material came from 8 human teeth excavated from burial chambers beneath the old racetrack, according to researchers working there. Teeth are not dramatic. They do not sing. They sit in the jaw and wait. Sometimes, they remember what blood tried to forget. Inside those teeth, scientists found the genetic signature of Yersinia pestis, the bacterium behind plague. Preserved across roughly 15 centuries, the bacterium left no monument, no inscription, no carved warning, just a trace, locked inside enamel under a place built for applause. The plague of Justinian is broadly dated from the 6th to 8th centuries and is often called the world's first recorded pandemic. Imagine a city still trying to behave like a city. Bread ovens warming, donkeys braying, doors opening, then closing again too softly. Historical accounts place the outbreak's first appearance around Pelusium in Egypt, before it spread through the Eastern Roman world. Disease travels best when people do. Through ports, roads, granaries, stables. Through hands reaching for the same rope, the same sack. The route did not glow red on a map. It sounded like carts leaving before dawn and docks working after sunset. The victims carried nearly identical strains of Yersinia pestis, a pattern researchers say suggests a fast, devastating outbreak. Fast has a sound in a burial ground, less prayer, less arrangement, more shovels scraping stone because daylight is running out. Pause. Under the racetrack, the dead were not placed for memory. They were placed because there was nowhere else that could take them. Genetic evidence places the Jerash victims within the 6th and 7th centuries, during the long arc of the Justinian pandemic. The bones settled where the crowd once gathered, beneath seats, beneath dust, beneath the imagined thunder of horses that never returned. In daylight, tourists photograph arches. At night, the spaces underneath feel less like ruins and more like rooms that kept breathing. Ray Jung, of the University of South Florida, described the discovery as long-sought proof of Yersinia pestis at the pandemic's epicenter. Proof does not have to shout. Sometimes it is smaller than a fingernail, pale as old chalk, carried in a padded box. Jiang also said the findings offer a direct genetic window into how the pandemic unfolded at the heart of the empire. That window is not glass. It is enamel. A hard little door in the mouth, shut for centuries, opened by careful hands. Jiang noted that a venue built for entertainment and civic pride became a mass cemetery during an emergency. Emergency changes the map of a city. A stadium becomes a graveyard. A service entrance becomes a path for bodies. Picture a steward locking the gates one evening, not for the end of games, but because the games no longer mattered. No announcer. No desk kicked up by teams. Only the slow arrival of people who could not be given individual goodbyes. Archaeology magazine reported estimates that the pandemic killed between 25 and 100 million people across its centuries-long course. Numbers are cold. They stack neatly. But every number once had a cup, a doorway, a pair of sandals by a bed. We should be careful with ancient death tolls. One approach is to hear the scale without pretending the exact edges are settled. Scholars still debate the pandemic's death toll, regional impact, and long-term effect on the Byzantine Empire. A pandemic does not fall evenly. It pulls in some neighborhoods. It skips a doorway. It returns after people start speaking normally again. The researchers argue later plague pandemics did not descend from one single ancestral strain, but emerged repeatedly from animal reservoirs. Animal reservoirs are not villains. They are hiding places. The world keeps small rooms where old dangers wait without malice. Modern plague is rare, and treatment may help when caught early. If symptoms worry you, consult a medical professional instead of guessing. If headlines make ancient plague feel immediate, consider checking public health sources first. History should sharpen attention, not feed panic. At Jerash, the wind still passes through stone seating. It does not care what the seats were for or what lies beneath. Softly. What unsettles me is not that the dead were found, it is that the place accepted them so completely. The work involved researchers from the University of South Florida and Florida Atlantic University, studying ancient DNA from Jerash samples. A lab at night has its own kind of haunt. Freezers breathe. Machines blink. Everyone speaks as if the samples might wake. Phys.org reported that the ancient DNA came from teeth excavated in burial chambers beneath the former Roman hippodrome. An amyl is a small locked room. Blood passes nearby. Bacteria pass through blood. Then time comes in and takes everything softer. The DNA tied Yersinia pestis to victims near the historical center of the Justinian plague's first recorded spread. For centuries, the pandemic existed mostly in words, chronicles, rumors copied by hand, sentences outliving the hands that wrote them. Written accounts can tremble. They can exaggerate. They can miss the poor, the rural, the people buried without witnesses. But a tooth has no rhetoric. It does not blame comets or sin. It holds chemistry until someone asks correctly. The University of South Florida announced the findings in late summer of 2025, connecting the samples to linked research. Archaeology magazine later reported the discovery for archaeology readers, emphasizing the direct pathogen evidence from the Jerash teeth. News travels differently now. Not by caravan, not by ship. Still the old unease arrives the same way. Quietly, then everywhere. Breath. The old track did not need to understand the plague. It only needed space, and the city had run out. The near-identical bacterial strains in the victims suggest they died during the same rapid outbreak, not scattered unrelated events. Rapid is when ritual fails. When names cannot be spoken slowly. When grief is folded into work and carried underground. No family plot. No chosen hill. No quiet corner with shade. Just a chamber under the place where the city once cheered. The burial chambers were located beneath the former Roman hippodrome, a public venue once associated with spectacle and civic life. Spectacle and emergency used the same stone. That is the part that lingers. A city repurposing its joy without ceremony. Consider resisting simple morals here. The past is not a warning poster. It is a room full of evidence and absence. We call it recorded because writing survived. But the first recorded pandemic was not the first time fear entered a household. USF describes the plague of Justinian as the world's first recorded pandemic, spanning centuries across the late ancient world. Recorded does not mean contained. It means somebody wrote while other people buried, burned incense, counted bread, and listened for footsteps. Historical accounts say the outbreak spread from Egypt to the Eastern Roman or Byzantine Empire after its first appearance. Empire sounds enormous. At ground level, it is a dockworker's cough, a merchant's ledger, a mule nosing through spilled grain. The teeth make it smaller. Not an empire, not a century. Just bodies near one another when the same thing arrived. Researchers placed the Jerash plague victims between the middle 6th century and the 7th century, using the genetic and archaeological context. Before these samples, the plague had a voice from history. Now it has a fingerprint. Small, damaged, but there. The ancient DNA gives biological evidence for a catastrophe long known mostly through written accounts and later historical interpretation. If you enjoy these quiet excavations of history, consider liking or subscribing. It helps keep the night shift lit. For your own reading, start with the research reports. Let the evidence be slow. Let the stone and teeth speak first. Midnight gives ruins a second architecture. Shadows add doors. Fog builds walls. The hippodrome becomes less a sight than a throat. The track still opens toward the sky. The chambers so close beneath it. One space for cheering. One space for keeping. One wrong detail remains. The place built to measure speed became the place where a city stopped moving. It is not the sand that remembers, not the arches, not the empty seats cooling after sunset. It is what survived inside the mouth. Beneath a place built for cheering, 8 teeth kept waiting. When they finally spoke, they did it without raising their voice.